Hello, hope everyone had a nice Rosh Hashanah and is having an easy fast. We're continuing with the laws of Rechilus, chapter 7, number 4. Gam ein chilek be'isser Rechilus, ben im hu margel al Yisrael b'fnei Yisrael, u ben im hu margel al Yisrael b'fnei Nachrim. There is no difference, meaning there is still a prohibition to speak Rechilus, whether the Rechilus you're speaking is in front of a Jewish person or in front of a non-Jewish person. V'kasher nidayek heitev nimtza da'avono gadol b'zeh harbe yoser mistam Rechilus. He says that, in fact, speaking Rechilus to a non-Jewish person is much worse than speaking to a Jewish person, because often that will lead to much more damage to the person. And like we explained earlier about Lashon Hara in the first section, chapter 8, number 12. I think one of the reasons he explained there, right, if you say something about a Jew to another Jew, then, often the Jewish person will look at it favorably. But if you're talking from someone who's like outside of the tribe, so to speak, so they might be much less likely to be understanding of what happened. And also, unfortunately, we know, I'm just adding this myself, there's a lot of anti-Semites out there, so they will often jump on any negative information about a Jew to take revenge and cause unjust pain to that Jew or the Jewish community. There are many people who violate this sin. For instance, if a Jewish person does work for a non-Jewish person and you start bashing the Jewish person's work in front of this non-Jewish person who had the work done, or if he bought something from somebody, it's a very big sin to do that, just like it's a big sin. It's just like it's a sin to do it if it was a Jewish person doing work for a Jewish person. It's also a very big sin if it's a Jewish person doing work for a non-Jewish person. So the idea is that whether the person you're speaking to is Jewish or not Jewish, it is still a prohibition of Rechilus. When a person does this, it could ruin someone's parnasa, his livelihood, which is a big sin, right? So everyone should think twice. We've mentioned this before you write a negative review on Amazon or on Google reviews or on Facebook or whatever it is. Let's say you just had a minor issue at a restaurant you ate at, and you go and you put a negative review, and we know how Facebook and social media works. Nobody questions anything, and before you know it, you could have destroyed this guy's whole livelihood, and he has no way to support his family, to get his kids swimming lessons or whatever it is, sends his kids to school, and doesn't have could ruin the guy's whole life by putting one little negative review on Facebook. Maybe he didn't cook your food right, or he didn't put in enough ketchups, and it was just an accident. It was a one-time thing, right? Nobody's perfect, and because you wrote that negative review, it could start a snowball effect, and before you know it, you just ruined somebody's life. So before we write something negative on social media, about someone's business, it's definitely wise to think twice, and probably, usually, in most scenarios, it's best not to write it at all. Ule'inyan, number 5. Ule'inyan isser kabbalas Rechilus. When it comes to accepting Rechilus, accepting talebearing, dina hu kamo b'lashon hara. The law is the same as lashon hara, like we said in the Chelik Aleph B'chal Ches Yud Beis Yudala and Sham. Al Kain Yesh Li Zar Ma'od Shelo L'Kabu Rechilus Mishum Adam Va'Afila Me'ishto. One should be careful not to listen to talebearing from anybody, and even his wife. If your wife says, "Hey, honey, what so and so said about you," you shouldn't listen to her and you shouldn't believe her. V'kasher nizbonin heitev nimtza shebameh shehu mekabel Rechilus me'ishto b'meh shesipra lo sheploni dibra lo kach v'kach. Levad havan ha'atzmi shakabalas Rechilus hu mevi la'atzmo al yedei zeh saros rabos ki beroso sheba'al mekabel dvarim b'sever panim yavas yisapr lo tamid me'inyanim ke'elu. Uvyaso al yedei zeh lidei kas u'matzim riva. I'll translate in a second. V'dav nefesh al kein anachon ma'od lebal nefesh ligor be'ishto kishemisaperes lo me'inyanim ke'elu. So he says that people often think that the prohibitions of Lashon Hara and Rechilus don't apply to family members. Oh, if my wife tells me it's okay, I can listen, or I can tell my wife, or if it's a parent or sibling, I could listen to it, or I could speak badly about him. Says the Chavetz Chaim, no, that is in fact incorrect. If, in this case, he's talking about a wife, your wife comes and says Rechilus, it's a very bad thing to accept that Rechilus, because in addition to the actual sin of listening to the Rechilus, you just gave approval for your wife. She's going to think, oh, my husband thinks it's fine if I say negative things about people to him. So she will constantly keep doing it, and obviously this goes for a husband to a wife and vice versa. And he says, in fact, one should reprimand his wife. He's talking to a husband here. He says one should reprimand his wife if she is saying those speaking Rechilus to him. And we had in other places also, one should reprimand his family members if they are speaking Lashon Hara to him. The idea, again, is that people think that when it comes to family members, I can gossip with them and I can gossip about them. That is not true. Family member is just like anybody else. Okay, so we learned that just like there is Rechilus to speak to another Jew, so too it applies to a non-Jew. And also, Rechilus applies even when listening from family members, and sometimes it could even be worse because those family members will think that it's by you listening to their gossip, they think, oh, he approves of my gossip, I'm going to gossip with him more. So I hope everyone has a easy and spiritually meaningful fast, and Gemar Chasima Tova.